so Spirit, how to befriend. Show us how to forgive. To all who live, show us forgiveness that we may live. To speak of loving is not to love. Lies move among us below above. When we are raging, needing to mend, show us, O Spirit, how to befriend. Show us how to forgive. To all who live, show us forgiveness that we may live. When love is baffled, choice is not clear, we turn to worship to cast out fear. Teach us forgiveness, make love our hand. Show us, O Spirit, how to befriend. Show us how to forgive. To all who live, show us forgiveness that we may live. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tampa. I'm Pat Benedict, your worship associate for today, March 6th, 2022. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we're still unable to gather together in person, but our numbers are down and hopefully we'll be meeting together very soon. Watch for any announcements that'll be coming. We are fortunate to be able to gather together in spirit today. We welcome you to this opportunity to be together. This is a time to celebrate and acknowledge the joy, comfort, and sometimes the challenges we face as a community. Welcome to this day. Our guest speaker today is the Reverend Juniper Meadows. Reverend Meadows is a recently ordained graduate from Meadville Lombard Theological School. She has been an activist, a spoken word poet, a drag queen, a storyteller, a musician, and now a minister, weaving all these lives and their lessons together into her growing ministry. Reverend Meadows is a leader in the Unitarian Universalist trans community and a lover of her homeland in the beautiful Tennessee Valley, but is excited to announce her upcoming departure to Omaha, Nebraska, where she will serve as a minister of Second Unitarian of Omaha. Welcome, Reverend Meadows. We have one announcement this morning. Harmony Terrace Co-Housing of Tampa Bay would like to invite you to a short presentation and Q&A today after check-in at coffee time on this same link. After this session, we will send a virtual survey to all church members. We are seeking approval for Harmony Terrace of Tampa Bay to be built next door to the church. Since time is of the essence, the board has asked us to follow this protocol to establish approval rather than waiting until the May congregational meeting. We are hoping for this to be a symbiotic relationship and would appreciate your approval. We are looking forward to working together. Before we begin our service, we'll have our stone ritual. I'll place our first stone for any joys for last week. Our second stone is for any sorrow that you may have had during the week. And our third stone I place with an intention for this upcoming week for the people of Ukraine. My thoughts and prayers are with them. And now we'll have our opening words by Reverend Meadows.
These words by poet Mary Oliver. Every summer, I listen and look under the sun's brass and even into the moonlight, but I can't hear anything. I can't see anything. Not the pale roots sticking down, nor the green stalks muscling up, nor the leaves dampening, deepening their damp pleats, nor the tassels making, nor the shucks, nor the cobs, and still, every day the leafy fields grow taller and thicker, green gowns lofting up in the night, showered with silk, and so every summer. I fail as a witness, seeing nothing. I am deaf too to the tick of the leaves, the tapping of downwardness from the banyan feet, all of it happening beyond any seeable proof or hearable hum. And therefore, let the immeasurable come. Let the unknowable touch the buckle of my spine. Let the wind turn in the trees and the mystery hidden in the dirt swing through the air. How could I look at anything in this world and tremble and grip my hands over my heart? What should I fear? One morning in the leafy green ocean, the honeycomb of the corn's beautiful body is sure to be there. Little summer poem touching the subject of faith.
And now we'll have our opening hymn, Gather the Spirit. Reverend Meadows has the meditation.
These words from the 13th century Christian mystic and Beguine poet Hedwig. She writes, "All things are too small to hold me. I am so vast. In the infinite I reach for the uncreated. I have touched it. It undoes me, wider than wide. Everything else is too narrow. You know this well, you who are also there. All things are too small to hold me. I am so vast. In the infinite, I reach for the uncreated. I have touched it. It undoes me, wider than wide. Everything else is too narrow. You know this well, you who are also there. When I came seeking in Unitarian Universalism maybe a little over 10 years ago in Knoxville, Tennessee, I came seeking a faith that could at once honor my authenticity as I was trying to author myself and to reconcile the faith I had grown up with who I had found myself to be, and ennoble all my questions to contextualize this search. And seeking a faith, and yet that word, faith, had taken on this bitter quality in my mouth, a great deal of theological language that had brought me at least some measure of comfort began to pain me and to feel hollow, like a dusty relic, or sometimes like a cursed artifact of a story I had once lived. I think this happens for a number of us in Unitarian Universalism, those of us who come in from a place sometimes we carry a wound. Faith so often constructed as this heartfelt belief, these convictions and dogmas that I was called to hold and defend, that I might be changed. And this was the only kind of conception of faith that I had known. And it was no longer a faith that felt good to me. The faith I had known, that perhaps some of you have known, is one that makes demands of you, that sets a doctrine. But the faith I've found in Unitarian Universalism, one of questions, discernment, relationality, love. I pray that you have found such a faith here. And what if this might be what we mean by faith? When we call ourselves a community of faith, not common believers, but beautiful livers in relationship with one another and the more than human world, finding our conviviality, our living togetherness, and being changed by that. Utilizing symbols, stones, chalices, rituals, worship, and acts of justice, love, and service to point toward the infinite, the ineffable, that which undoes us, weaves us anew, that ground of our being. When I first came into our communities, for all my heart longed for the succor and the sweetness of a faith, I found no real answers to my ultimate questions, no set dogma to hold on to. I was younger and, well, maybe less lost now, but I was looking for the wrong thing in the wrong places. Oh, the wrong thing in the right places. We can offer each other avenues for growth, but in matters of ultimacy, of the hereafter, or of reasons for being here, all we have to offer In such a construction of faith, one defined by beliefs and convictions and dogma that we are supposed to hold and defend, is often a shrug, or perhaps a deep, long conversation with yet more questions. And questions are sacred to us. This is how we seek the truth in love. These may even be seen as an expression of our free faith, asking questions. What does it mean to be here? What is a soul? What is my soul? What has me? This is how we seek the truth in love and help one another. When we ask, what do you need? How may I help? The question guides us into relationship as much as it does to a sense of that which is beyond us, that which we are seeking. A proof perfect to me of the power of the human spirit to seek and not find, and in our own lostness, be surprised together. It was in such a lostness that I stumbled into seminary, full of surprises. I had felt this tug of ministry on my heart for a really, really long time, but it was only due to some chance encounters in community and some well-placed questions that I found the road opening up to me. And so I came to Meadville Lombard Theological School in Chicago, not really knowing what to expect, not at all prepared for the snow, not knowing much of our history as a faith, not knowing what to anticipate from something like theology. Even though I had studied philosophy in undergrad, I had not prepared myself for theology, green as grass. And theology, the study of faith, was up there for me with terms like faith as a kind of a broken symbol. But in my short time at Meadville, I came to feel like even someone as uncertain as I was, and still am, can call themselves a theologian. Theology, like faith, is often commonly constructed as this set of arguments and convictions and mental gymnastics performed that one might be able to point to God with certainty, particularly a very certain construction or understanding of God. But this is not the theology that I encountered at Meadville. I was introduced to theologians of a wildly diverse caliber, ones whose words spoke to me, cutting through this sort of malaise of uncertainty, and rather than bemoaning the unknowable of the ultimate, just simply exalted in it, reveled in it, claimed that in order for a faith to be true, it must be able to own its own uncertainty, giving me cause to consider faith not as a rigid construction from a bunch of old dead priests, but rather as a dynamic force, less something that you have, and more something that has you. And among these theologians I encountered, one of my favorite has been this old guy named Paul Tillich. He's a Lutheran theologian of the early to mid 20th century, and he has a small but powerful text called The Dynamics of Faith. The sermon is called Dynamics of Faith, in which he lays the groundwork for a more robust understanding of faith, maybe less of an alternate understanding and more of an expansion of the idea. Less a set of convictions and more an awareness of our concerns, our ultimate concerns. Such concerns, in the words of Tillich, demand the total surrender of the one who accepts the claim, promising total fulfillment, even if all other claims have to be subjected to it or rejected in its name. Total surrender, total fulfillment, that thing which one is called to give oneself over to at the cost of all other things, promising in the end this total fulfillment. If such a concept seems alien to you, you might consider the modern myths that we buy into, the ultimate concerns that are constructed all around us culturally, not necessarily as the objects of religious veneration, but still promising something. The myth of success, financial success, chief among them. One may forego passions, dreams, all for the hope that if one can sustain a certain standard of living, an excessive standard of living, that's what I'm talking about here, for long enough that they will eventually find happiness. And it's true that a certain threshold of money is vital for us to truly thrive, but it is not in itself the path to or the end goal of happiness. Lives and livelihoods ravaged at the dipping of what is frankly an imaginary line, but with real and dire consequences. When we place our faith in such claims, these stories that promise this ultimate satisfaction, that it's all going to fit together at the price of total subservience, We might well find ourselves, be it in a box or in a golden bathroom, feeling terribly estranged from not just other people, but also from ourselves. Or perhaps we turn the other road and explore the faith one may put in a nation or in national pride. One need only turn on the news to see the wickedness brought by the ultimate concern of nationalism, Putin's egregious and unnecessary war to reclaim some lost promise of national fulfillment. And in the end, all that's going to be left in his hands is ashes and terror. Neither Russia nor Ukraine nor the world made any better by this terrible, terrible mischief. All for lines on a map, as Carl Sagan, my favorite theologian, would say, for tyrants vying for control over momentary control of a fraction of a pixel. Or we may look in our own country to the sycophantic pseudo-religion that has emerged around the 45th president and his cult of personality, one which promises its followers some ultimate redemption upon his reascending the throne, some return to national pride, and for which failure to toe the line would be met with a kind of exclusion. Nationalism, wealth, personality, consumption. It is not uncommon for us to misplace our faith, to find ourselves ensnared in wickedness. Faith is something that we have, but it is also this thing that has us. Tillich would call these an idolatrous faith, for while all of these and more may claim ultimacy, may claim to provide that satisfaction, do we not find ourselves ultimately lied to? Empty pockets, broken hearts, walled off from one another by actual walls or just piles of possessions. All the more reason to be in discernment, practicing stewardship of our ultimate concerns, asking ourselves this question: what has me? What has me? What has me by the scruff of my neck and won't let me go? What draws me towards any understanding of the infinite as I remain a finite being? What has me? This doesn't have to take the language of supernatural things. It certainly can. As Unitarian Universalists, we explore such questions as a free people, burdened only by a blessed responsibility to one another and our own integrity. Yet even our faith with our ultimate concerns, like all ultimate concerns, demands expression. Expression takes many forms: ritual, worship, acts of love and kindness, social justice, deep conversations with friends over coffee, standing up to bullies, speaking truth, asking questions. These need not be casual or simple acts stripped of meaning, not when they are conducted as acts befitting the religious people that we are. These are holy actions, holy symbols, befitting an ultimate concern whose content lies not in love and freedom and curiosity as simple ideals, wherein lies the infinite. Within each of us. Here, within the act of searching and seeking, within truth-telling and the remembering that we do not have all the answers, right? Within community and this conviviality, that growth we may experience when we come together. Y'all, I believe that love, can be a verb. And if God be love, then God may be found in all actions of love, from the simple to the supreme. All love bends towards the holy. The word God, much like faith, has sometimes lost some of its viability with us, as it is often construed to mean a transcendent Father. But I take it to refer, for me, to this ground of our being. So please substitute another word that feels right for you. The name of the infinite and the inexhaustible depth and ground of our being is God, writes Tillich. That depth is what the word God means. Translate it and speak to the depths of your life or the source of your being and your ultimate concern. Perhaps in order to do so, you must forget everything traditional that you have learned about God, perhaps even that word itself. For if you know that God means depth, you know about God. I am still sorting out how the word God hits home for me, but I feel Tillich's words here pointing towards the depth of my being, towards all my stories and the stories that have brought me here and us together today. And I'm translating it. it will continue to take time. This is the search for truth and meaning, that this seeking, this casting of questions into the deep, this is a vital expression of faith, a key element of what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist, a faith that is certain of its uncertainty, whose ultimacy rests in the vision of a beloved community, which promises fulfillment, but whose practice is challenging. We don't get to be told what to believe or how to believe, and I doubt many of us would be here if that were the case. This is a faith by and for the free, for the sake of freedom and love, not as simple ideals, but as concrete expressions born out of living together, of loving this world, of listening to one another, particularly those voices who have so often been left out of the conversation and just relegated to the margins. We're a living tradition. We try new things. We open up new doors. We bring in new ideas and new voices and new ears and new hearts, new voices bringing new dynamisms and new expressions of our living together, our living tradition, new fruit in these wild gardens that are our congregations. So we are indeed a faith, even if we have dropped the shackles of dogma, a faith of diverse bodies, diverse minds, common hearts geared toward leaving the world better than we found it. Such a faith is necessarily dynamic, alive, adaptable, always growing. The dynamics of faith are the dynamics of our ultimate concerns, the dynamics of our living hearts. These are troubled times, deeply troubled times, but I believe that if we can be mindful to these dynamics of faith, now they won't make everything better, certainly, but we may be better equipped to act courageously and compassionately and effectively in response to the litany of idolatrous concerns in which we wander, not as just idle armchair activists or people casually thinking, but as real lovers of freedom and love for love's own sake, expanding these communities, transforming hearts, and seeking the truth. So might we ask ourselves, what has me? What is this ground of my being? What are my ultimate concerns? May we find comfort and strength in this faith we share, our legacy of justice, faithfully learning from our missteps, moving towards the future, with our heads held high. May we each be not only seekers, but theologians in our own right. And may the source of love and freedom be with you, guide you, and may the ground of your being be a garden of joy. Amen, and blessed be. And we'll turn to our closing hymn, number 374 and number 376, Doxology.
Since what we choose is what we are, and what we love we yet shall be, the goal may ever shine afar, the will to win it makes us free. Sing loudly till the stars have heard, in joy face on this bounteous work, our praises call us to explore, till sun shall rise and set no more.
Now time for our offering. Today is the first Sunday of the month, so we share our plate with McDonald Training Center. At MTC, they believe in shattering barriers and opening doors to opportunities for people with all disabilities. United with a shared purpose, they work to make our community more inclusive, equitable, flexible, and open to the talents of all people. You can find out more about them and make your donation on their website, mcdonaldcenter.org. Thank you so much for your continued and generous support of this organization. Now, Reverend Meadows has our closing word.
The name of the infinite and inexhaustible depth and ground of our being could be God. And that depth is what the word God means. Translate it and speak to the depths of your life or the source of your being, of your ultimate concern. Perhaps in order to do so, you must forget everything traditional that you have learned about God, perhaps even that word itself. For if you know that God means depth, you know about God. Amen.
As we extinguish our chalice today, we thank you for choosing to spend your time with us. Our hope for you is that the coming days are filled with kindness, wisdom, and love. Blessed be.